Good morning. Here comes the sun. Thank you, George Harrison, for that beautiful song. The sun, Slanceto, El Sol, here on a Sunday in the Southwest California, about 500 or 600 feet above the Pacific Ocean. I've been sun gazing now about 4 weeks, every day, although I did miss one day when it was raining. It's been consecutive 4 weeks in a row. Concentrated sun gazing has provided many benefits for me personally, which I would love to share with you. And I would love to synthesize some information that I've come across about sun gazing, how we should sun gaze, what the recommendations are. And the sources are many and they vary, some of them quite a bit, as to what sun gazing is, how we should go about it. I started off reluctantly sun gazing for 10 minutes at a time, which I'm not saying that's recommended, because I can't advise any of you. You have to make up your own mind about these things. I'm no expert about sun gazing, but I've been doing it on and off for over 25 years, but only for 2 or 3 minutes in the beginning. You know, when the sun is red or it's orange, the low ultraviolet index power of the sun. So I was a little afraid to start with 10 minutes, but I did, and I was very surprised that I moved up to 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and even 25 minutes. Sometimes the sun is very bright too, such as today. There's very little haze on the horizon, very little clouds. And yesterday I thought I will try to see if I can sun gaze for 30 minutes. And yesterday was very windy and it was very bright. From the moment that it went above the horizon, it was extremely bright. And that's kind of rare around here because Los Angeles has so much smog. But to my great surprise, I was actually able to sun gaze for 39 minutes. And it was one of the most amazing things that's ever happened to me, because I almost passed out. I almost fainted. I was standing and I was taking deep breaths, which is what I do when I meditate, sitting in the lotus position, transcendental meditation. You take these deep breaths, but for over 25 years, I've never almost passed out from doing this. But yesterday this happened, and it was weird. It was like there was the dark became light and the light became dark, and the images had a tracer, and this lasted for a few seconds. And I'm not sure, but I think it was an energy overload, like a happiness overload, because I was extremely happy. Watching the sun for this long was just too much, apparently. And I was just about to stop. I thought I would take one more deep breath, and I almost fell right off of this little hill here, which could have been bad. So we have to be, I need to be careful. I think it's good for all of us to be careful, of course, but again, you have to gauge what your limits are. Yesterday I found out that I surpassed a limit, and I need to be very careful. So with respect to the joy, there's so much happiness watching the sun that it's difficult to put into words, because I've never experienced this level of joy when I'm meditating. And the best way I can describe it with words is that there's some kind of like a communion going on between myself and the sun, that I'm in the presence of some incredible power, some amazing force or entity, and I feel like I'm being blessed by this amazing power. Anyway, that's my personal testimony for what it's worth. The other sources, one is coming from the Institute of Applied Meditation, the I Am Health participants, and apparently the founder of the Institute claims that he is looking, or was looking at the sun for 3 hours at a time in one sitting, which for me that's difficult for me to envision. I'm not saying that it's impossible. I'm a little confused as to why we would need to look at the sun for that long at one time, especially every day. But I believe I subscribe to this. I resonate well with this. I think that this is possible. I just don't understand necessarily why. The Institute also claims that we are taking intelligence from the sun, not just energy, but intelligence. And that we are breathing in the sun through our pineal gland and exhaling through the heart. I would imagine the heart chakra. This energy, this prana, the chi, the life force, as it's called. And I resonate very well with those things, and that the pineal gland is growing. Another source is coming from Hira Ratan Manek. And this is the so-called HRM method. And there's a website for that. I'll put some links below. There's a website with lots of information. And apparently NASA has been doing some research with Mr. Manek. For 100 days they observed him. And apparently he doesn't eat food. Or if he does, it's by his choice, not because he has to. And the claim is that he hasn't eaten anything. I think he went 12 years without eating. Check the links below. I'm not quite sure. There are different articles about him, and a couple touch on the fact that not on the fact, but the supposed notion that NASA was doing research with him and other long-term sun gazers, and that NASA has apparently verified that sun gazing is a legitimate practice. There are other sources which say that NASA never did any of this, and there's no empirical evidence of this at all. So I don't know. You have to do your own research. But according to the HRM method, you're beginning to watch the sun 10 seconds, and then you're adding an additional 10 seconds each day until you're watching the sun for 9 months, and then you're seeing it for 44 minutes per day. After 3 months, apparently what happens is the hypothalamus pathway begins to open up, and the solar energies are coming through the pathway, through the eye, into the brain, stimulating the brain and causing a secretion of the melatonin and serotonin happy hormones. And I can attest to that you feel very happy, at least I do, when I'm looking at that beautiful little blazing orb in the sky. Incredible happiness. Almost indescribable. I don't know how you could describe it. It's to pass out for. Anyway. And that your hunger diminishes. Stress, disease, tension begin to diminish. And your pineal gland begins to grow. Apparently after 6 months, you can see all of the colors on the sun, and after 9 months, every cell in your body begins to be infused with solar energy, and your brain is fully charged, so that you either don't have to eat almost anything, or you don't have to eat at all. And apparently people are claiming that they no longer eat after this 9-month period, and that they no longer have to see the sun. They no longer have to sun gaze, but as the claim goes, you walk barefoot about 45 minutes per day, 3, 4, 5 times per week, with the sun, and creating an electrical magnetic field between you and the sun, and that you need to be barefoot for this to happen, no shoes. And the Institute also mentions that it's better to be barefoot. Other sources don't mention that you have to be barefoot at all, so I can't say. I've tried both ways. For me, it does not seem to have made a difference yet, but it is February, so it's in the middle of the winter. It's cold. It would be complicated to take your shoes off, I think. for most people. I'm a little concerned about the 9-month thing where you no longer have to look at the sun. This doesn't resonate with me very well. I have some reservations with this, because I would think that more yogis and gurus and even scientists would be speaking about this if this were the case. NASA claims that this would be something like a superhuman level to reach. And come on, folks, I think it would be. You no longer have to eat, you're no longer stressed out, you're disease-free after only 9 months. I mean, it's like a magic reset button, right? So I'm hoping this is true. I'm not saying it's not true, but maybe for the average person this would be very difficult to reach this incredibly high level. And another reason that I'm skeptical about this is that there are other sages. There's one sage in particular that's saying some very singular things, very different things about the sun. And he passed away in the 1940s. He was Bulgarian, and his name is Peter Donov. Peter Donov also had some disciples that were talking about this and continue to talk about this. One disciple's name is Omram Mikhail Ivanov. And again, for Peter Donov and Ivanov, I will put links below. You can do your own research. Omram was saying that we do, in fact, need to breathe in the essence of the sun. That in the air there is this essence, this prana, this life force, the source of life for our planet. And we need to consciously breathe, which is not something I was necessarily very aware of, because although I'm looking at the sun constantly for 20, 25 minutes, 39 minutes, not looking away, looking right into the sun like I'm doing right now, sometimes I'm not thinking about the sun, and sometimes I'm not conscious of my breathing. And Omram says that the energy that you gain when you're not conscious is greatly reduced. Very important to consciously breathe in this energy. And Peter Donov goes so far as to say that human beings have a transformer for the sun's energy, and that the sun has a transformer for us. And that, for me, how I see this is that there's some kind of a communion, there's a reciprocating force between us and the sun's energy. And this communion allows us to receive this intelligence that the Institute for Applied Meditation is talking about. This intelligence, this information that we can get every day. And Peter Donov also says that it's good to be outside even 30 minutes before the sun rises, because the sun rays, which are refracted by the atmosphere, are very, very stimulating for our brain. And I don't know about you, but I could use all the brain stimulation I can get. So I want to see the sun rise every morning for the rest of my life. That's how I feel now. I'll try to do another video 9 months from now, and maybe I'll feel differently, but I doubt it. Because I've been to Bulgaria, and I've been with the people that are seeing the sun, and there's no mention of stopping seeing the sun gazing process. And there's long-term sun gazers for decades. Experiments, there's a claim that there's one man who's very old, long-term sun gazer, and his pineal gland has expanded 3 times the average size. So that tells me that there is some benefits in seeing the sun beyond a 9-month period. Peter Donov continues to say that there is a high tide and a low tide for the sunrise. The high tide begins at midnight and it ends at noon. And the peak for that high tide is the sunrise. Low tide begins at noon and it ends at midnight, and the peak for that is sunset. By that logic, it would be more inducive to obtain the sun's energy for sunrise, for that peak of the high tide. Peter Donov continues to say that even if it's cloudy or if it's raining, we can still absorb the vital energies of the sun. So that's good to know, because even if it's inclement weather, you can still gain energy. Although I must say, for me, it's much easier to stay focused if you can actually see the sun. And I don't know about diffusing the clouds, like cloud dispersing, all that. I don't know. I've tried to do this. Apparently, if you try to see the sun through the clouds can disperse. But I've always failed at this, so I don't know. Anyway, the clouds are there for their business, so I don't necessarily even feel comfortable dispersing them. I don't. Anyway, I'm digressing. So I think that's probably about it. Again, it's difficult to describe the amazing experience of seeing the sun every day consecutively for this long. I would no, I'm not going to recommend. Like I said, I'm not going to recommend anything. You have to do whatever vibes with you, and I hope that at least this testimony of mine has inspired somebody in the way that these other testimonies that I've seen have inspired me. And I hope that you have a very sunny day. What else can I say? Thank you very much for watching. Peace.